topic number two, the U of M coaches. What coaches has the most to prove this year and why? And do you think there's a coach that should be on the hot seat?
Well, I think, and this is like an evergreen statement, right? But I mean, special teams coordinator can't really do a ton worse in Bob Ligashevsky. Yeah, I think we were expecting a lot maybe last year, just a guy coming in who had NFL coaching experience and just a new face that would maybe, I don't know, change things up a little bit, but it just felt a little bit like the same old, same old. It's not all entirely his fault, but I mean, the regression of Kesich was disappointing too. Like we thought, if anything else, we at least have a kicker that's going to be stone cold, but that even wasn't the case. So I guess this year, just with new kicker, new punter coming in, another year of Parrish hopefully still being the return man. If we can see some
Yeah.
just improvement out of the special teams, just move it in the right direction would be huge. So I don't know. Bob feels like he's got the most to prove, but between the two coordinators, I think it's still Harbaugh just to see what he can do with not Max Rosemer at quarterback, and just kind of
Yeah.
see, and how his progression keeps moving. So I think he definitely got better last year, but he had the benefit of a really solid quarterback. So
That's fair. With Bob and the special teams, I just don't know. I understand it. I don't know how much we can really pin on him when your punter can only kick it at 35 yards down the field, and kickers are in their head. So I don't know. I get the pick for
right,
sure. Like, to me, I'm holding on to like, well, we blocked a punt against Penn State, so that was cool. And yeah, it's not great. I I think, because you brought it up, so we might as well hit it again. At this point, I really think that PJ just doesn't put enough emphasis and time into special teams as a whole. But that's his one job. So Bob's got to get it done. I would maybe controversial. I feel like this guy's a fan favorite, or at least was. I'm calling him out. I'm not saying he's going to be gone or anything, but I think he's got a lot to prove, and that if this season doesn't go right, I think he could be on the hot seat. I'm going with co-offensive coordinator, receivers coach Matt Simon. Everyone likes to bring up the 2019 year where we had Rashad Bateman, Tyler Johnson, two NFL wideouts. But since then, to be honest, the passing game's been pretty meh, I think a lot of people would say. And we've had total reshuffles of the receiver rooms multiple times. It feels like we can only get one fully polished receiver at a time for most of the time. I know Elijah Spencer came on this year, so last year was maybe a step in the right direction, but went from Chris Hoffman Bell after 2019 to then just Daniel Jackson for a while. We haven't put together these good receiving rooms when we've had bodies, and I made a list here. I'm just going to look down at it so I don't miss what I want to say. You know, uh, you had T.J. McWilliams, who's a former four-star guy. Yes, he was only a redshirt freshman. He saw the competition, hit the portal, but that's another athletic player that we didn't find a way to get on the field. You had Dalen Wright from Texas A&M, who had that one touchdown catch against Ohio State and then just disappeared. Never saw him again. Kristen Hawkins hit the portal. Flex said he's like the fastest guy on the team. We never found a way to get him on the field. And then you had guys even like Michael Brown Stevens, who I know this one I'm not putting on Simon because we saw what this guy did with a lot of playing time. But that's another guy that was known as like a speedster, and we couldn't use him really at all, except to lose to Purdue, and that was all that resulted in. So you have that track run. Then and I would even throw Corey Crooms in there, who actually had a nice career at Western Michigan before coming over here, and kind of same thing, just disappeared. Couldn't get a
Yeah.
couldn't get a use out of them. So now I got to look at the notes because these guys are all new. Javon Tracy, all MAC receiver. You got proven productive guys at the power level in Loyola out of UCLA. You got athletic freaks, Malachi Coleman out of Nebraska, right? Super fast, super tall, can jump. You got guys in year 2 here. So you got Christian Driver, guy from Penn State, athletic shifty guy. You got big bodied guy in Tyler Williams, former 5-star out of Georgia. You know, if a good chunk of these guys can't step up this year and find a productive role on the field, and the passing attack, you know, hurts because of that, I think you got to take a hard look at moving on for Matt Simon. At a certain point, you can only reshuffle the actual personnel of the room so often. And I know we're not Ohio State, we're not Alabama or LSU who's pulling in all these high 4-star, 5-star guys in that room all the time. But like at a certain point, you got to be able to get these guys to be usable players. And I feel like there's just too many good athletes that we've seen come here, sit a year or two, maybe 3, and then head for elsewhere. And maybe that is like a player thing. We've just had really bad luck, but I don't know, man. You got to find a way to use it. I'm not saying they all got to come in and be fully polished guys like Daniel Jackson, but like find a way to use these guys' God-given talents for once. We have these big-bodied guys. Can we put them in on the red zone? Throw them a jump ball. I know that it's forbidden when you have guys like Spanford and whatever in years past, but just finding a way to use these guys to create separation down the field or in the red zone to create mismatches. If you can't do that this year with this room of players who have proven it in a variety of different ways or just have huge upside, he's got a lot of options right now. So if you can't find something to click this year, I'm ready to move on from Matt Simon because he's not doing much.
Interesting.
Yeah, I like that take, Kurt. I do, because it makes complete sense.
The coaches are going to hate this episode. Not that they listen.
Yeah,
I'll send it to them.
yeah, that's the fans talking.
Yeah.
Um, I guess for me, I wanted to take kind of a good look and try and get an understanding of what was disappointing last season that you know needs to improve a little bit. I'm going with Brian Callahan, offensive line coach and the run game coordinator. Um, Historically, the Gophers have had tremendous seasons running the football. And when you have a back like Darius Taylor, you know, who got hurt, 2 seasons ago, was having a great year, coming in this next year to be the number one back, I felt that his running, and it's not all him, I just felt like it was just not really kind of what you expect out of Gopher running backs. He was great in the past. He was like our second best receiver, and that's a great, you know, tool to have. But when it
Yeah.
comes to purely running in between the tackles, it just didn't have that same oomph like it usually does. And I think that it does kind of start up front. It took a little bit for that group up front to get a little cohesion going. Uh, it felt like there was just something missing. I remember it was like the UCLA game is finally when maybe we were like, all right, maybe this is finally starting to turn to something good. But it just felt like it took too long. So I'm just looking at Coach Callahan to get these guys going and rolling right away, right off the bat. Have a solid running game all season long because that's just going to open up the passing game and make it easier for either Pyron or for Lindsey here this season. So yeah, I'm going with him.
I understand the pick. I need to see what if it's another year like last year. I think I'll be with you. But to
Yeah,
me, I think he's been overall pretty solid coach, like you
yeah.
said. So to me, I think that's more of like if
It's
you look
more,
at it like data, it's a point
yeah,
that doesn't quite correlate with the rest
right,
of it so far. Now, if it creates a trend, then I'll
right.
be right there with you.
I
But
wouldn't say that his seat is hot, but
no,
I feel like we have to just look at it and be like, all right, this was an outlier of a season here,
yeah,
and we get back on track this season.